One section, for completely different block types, and a merchant dragging them into any order they want inside the theme editor. What does that actually look like in real, working code, not a diagram someone drew on a whiteboard? Part 4 walked all 7 of Dawn's top-level folders. Today we open just one folder backup sections and zoom all the way into the one feature that makes Shopify's page-building model genuinely composable, blocks. Every line of code in this episode comes straight from 2 of Dawn's real, public section files. Welcome back to Shopify Development Deep Dive. A Shopify section is a single .liquid file that renders once per page. A block is something smaller that lives inside a section, a heading, a paragraph, an image, a button, and a merchant can add any number of them, delete them, and drag them into a new order, all without touching a single line of code. Today we open 2 of Dawn's real sections, rich-text and multicolumn, and read the exact code that makes the dragging and reordering actually work under the hood. 5 things by the end of this part. How a section schema declares multiple independent block types, each with its own settings list. The real for loop plus case statement Dawn uses to render each block type differently, depending on what it is. What block.Shopify_attributes actually does on a block's wrapper element, and why skipping it quietly breaks the theme editor. How a schema's presets array decides the default blocks a brand new section starts with the moment a merchant adds it. And how a section can go the other direction entirely, and define just one single repeatable block type, the way Dawn's multi-column section does. Here's the whole model in 5 stages. A section schema declares which block types exist and what settings each one exposes. A merchant then adds, removes, and reorders blocks entirely inside the theme editor, no code involved. Every one of those edits is really just reshaping one live, ordered array section.blocks. Liquid loops over that array and uses a case statement to render each block according to its own type. And a small, easy-to-miss attribute Shopify_attributes is what wires each rendered block back to its entry in the editor, so clicking it there highlights the right element on the page. The liquid code itself never has to change, no matter what a merchant does. A short list again. Part 4's tour of Dawn's sections folder, and the schema block we've now seen in parts 1, 3, and 4, both apply directly today. Basic comfort with a for loop and a case, or switch, statement in any programming language is really all the logic you need. A local clone of Dawn helps if you want to follow along file by file, but every path is named as we go, so it isn't required. And no prior Shopify theme development experience is needed at all. This is the real, top-level shape of rich-text's blocks array. For entries, each one a completely independent block type heading, caption, text, and button, and each carrying its own limit and its own settings list. A heading block knows nothing about a button block's settings, and vice versa. The limit field caps how many of that specific type a merchant can add: 3 headings, 3 captions, 3 text blocks, but only 2 buttons, all enforced by the schema itself, before a single line of rendering liquid ever runs. And here's the real loop that consumes that array. One for loop over section.blocks, and inside it, one case statement branching on block.type. When the block's type is heading, it renders an H2 and reads block.settings.heading. When it's text, it renders a div instead, and reads block.settings.text. Same loop, same case statement, for completely different when branches. This exact structure is how a single section file supports every different block type it declares in its schema. The button branch is worth its own look, because a single button block in rich-text can actually render up to 2 separate buttons. The schema exposes a second button label, link, and style checkbox alongside the first, and the liquid just repeats the same conditional pattern for both. Notice the style toggle 2 button -- secondary only gets added to the class list when the merchant has explicitly checked that box in the editor, otherwise the button renders with Dawn's default primary styling. This one attribute, block.Shopify_attributes, appears on literally every block wrapper in this file. The heading, the caption, the text block, and the button wrapper all carry it. It renders as a set of hidden data attributes that the Shopify theme editor uses behind the scenes to know exactly which on-page element corresponds to which block in its sidebar. Leave it off a wrapper, and that block still renders fine on the storefront, but clicking it inside the theme editor no longer highlights it, and drag to reorder can stop working correctly for that block. This is the real presets array at the very bottom of rich-text schema. When a merchant adds this section to a page for the first time, Shopify doesn't hand them an empty section. It creates exactly these 3 blocks, in exactly this order: a heading, then a text block, then a button. That starting lineup is entirely declared right here in the schema, as plain data, not decided by any conditional logic in the rendering liquid above it. Not every section needs 4 different block types like rich-text. Multicolumn's real schema declares exactly one block type, called column, with an image, a title, some rich text, and a link. A merchant adding a 3-column layout is really just adding 3 separate instances of this identical column block, same type, same settings, repeated. This is the other half of the composable model. Sometimes composability means many types in one section, and sometimes it means one type, repeated as many times as the layout needs. 2 more real details from multicolumn. First, section.blocks.size. The array's own length decides whether the mobile layout becomes a swipeable slider at all, comparing the number of column blocks against however many columns are configured for mobile. Add a 4th column block, and that comparison, and the rendered markup, changes automatically. Second, the same Shopify _attributes pattern from rich-text reappears here too, this time on each list item, confirming it isn't a rich-text specific trick, it's the standard convention for every block wrapper in Dawn. Stated as one single editing action, a merchant adds a 4th column block. The schema allows it, because unlike rich-text's heading or button types, column has no limit set at all. Section.blocks.size updates from 3 to 4 automatically. That size change can flip the mobile swipe check we just read. And the exact same for loop, with the exact same Shopify _attributes call, renders and wires up that brand new 4th block with 0 changes to the liquid file itself. That's the composable model, end-to-end, in code that ships in production today. A few things trip people up here. Forgetting block.shopify _attributes doesn't break anything a shopper sees on the storefront. It silently breaks the merchant-facing theme editor's click to select and drag to reorder behavior instead, which makes it an easy bug to miss in testing. A block type with no limit key set, like multicolumn's column type, can be added an unlimited number of times. There's no implicit cap unless the schema states 1. A schema's presets array only applies the moment a section is first added to a page. Editing the presets in your code later does nothing to sections merchants have already placed, since their blocks are already saved as real data. And block.settings works exactly like section.settings does, just scoped down to that one specific block instance, not the whole section. Pulling it together. A section's schema can declare several completely independent block types, each with its own settings list and its own limit. One for loop, paired with a case statement on block.type, is all it takes to render every one of those declared types correctly inside the same file. Block.shopify _attributes is the small but essential attribute that wires each rendered block back to its entry inside the theme editor. A schema's presets array decides the exact default blocks a brand new section starts with, as plain data, not custom logic. And a section doesn't have to declare several types at all. It can just as easily declare one single repeatable block type, the way Dawn's own multi-column section does. Every line of code today came straight from Shopify's own public Dawn repository. That's the real composable block model behind every Shopify section. One schema, one loop, one small attribute doing more work than it looks like. Part 6 moves one level up, into settings_schema.json, the single file that powers the theme editor's global settings panel across an entire theme. If you want the rest of this series as it publishes, subscribe now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 6.